Today we have the Fiio FD15. This is the most dynamic driver in the sense it's like when you go to movie theaters and you kind of hear a big type of explosion come off. It really sounds like you're there. You can like feel the explosion. It kind of gives you that same effect when you're listening to music. You can really feel the music. When you hear like a string instrument, it sounds like you're in the same room and you can feel like the vibrations from the string is pretty much the way I would describe the dynamic power of it. I feel like that's what makes it stand out. Now this thing is also a single dynamic driver and it uses what people call magnium, which is basically it uses magnesium and aluminum together and kind of achieves a more, I guess, sturdy and more detailed response because it's a lot more rigid type of properties to it. Now, we're going to compare this to some of its competition. So it has the Moondrop Kato, which is more expensive, like $180. This is $150. And then we have the Simgot IEM 500, and this is closer to $100. So do that comparison. And the interesting thing about this thing is also it has a really big driver. So it uses a 13.8 millimeter driver. So it's really big for a dynamic driver. Normally you don't find that until like planar drivers. So it's a big driver. And the result of this big driver really is that it's able to kind of have a bigger sound stage. So it sounds a little bit bigger as well. And then with that detail of those drivers, it also has what they have like these bass optimized type of technologies. They mention a lot of different ones, but I can definitely tell you that they focus a lot on the dynamic power and the sub bass on this. So the bass goes really deep. So I feel like this is a really, really fun IEM that a lot of people are going to enjoy. And so, yeah, let's kind of get into details. So if you take a closer look at the FD15, it has this metal black kind of shell to it. It's very sturdy. It's very kind of, I guess, cool and metallic. There's not really much of a, I guess, a design to it in the sense of that, like, there's not much different colors, but I feel like this is a pretty neutral type of IEM that people can get behind. So it also has some accents on it and this kind of cable. So it comes with actually a swappable cable. So this cable can actually be used as a balance cable or a 3.5 millimeter. So that's pretty cool, honestly. So the cable can actually just turn it and then take off the tip, and then you can pull it out, and then you can insert the other tip. So we have a balance tip that you can just kind of stick in there. So this thing comes with like 5 different types of tips. So 5 times, I guess, well, 6, 30, but then minus 2. So it's probably 28 different tips. They only give you 2 foams and they don't have different sizes, but everything else, they come with a small, medium, and large. So I tested all these foams to see what they sound like as well. So that was pretty interesting. And then they also come with different tips as well right here that you can change the nozzle of it. So I guess talking about the tips, my favorite tips are actually the Fiio tips. So they're these ones that kind of have like a type of cone type of look to it. So these cone tips are really, you can see the branding on it. They actually have the Fiio brand on it, and they're obviously the best ones because I guess they made it and they made it for the IEM. But these really have, I think, the best balance. You get a lot more, I guess, treble detail with, some good bass, and the comfort is actually really good too. So I really like these. Now, I tried the other ones. They had different variations. So the stock ones that actually came with them attached is these black ones. I feel like they're pretty good. I would say they're probably the second best. You get good bass with a little bit more, I guess, less treble than my favorite one, which is the Fiio tips. And then these white ones, I actually really did not like these. These are just too bright. There's just too much treble, and they were kind of not comfortable. And then I actually like these gray ones a lot. These gray ones will have a little bit less treble, but a lot more bass. So if you like a lot of bass, this is pretty much a warm signature. So I do recommend that one a lot. And then it comes to the phone tips. Phone tips are actually surprisingly, I thought they were going to be a lot darker, but they get a lot of bass, a lot of mid bass. If you like bass, this does pretty well. And the treble, surprisingly, doesn't get reduced like crazy. It's a pretty good tip too. Right here, we can take off the tip, but this tip is actually pretty comfortable, but I feel like the fit of this IEM itself isn't my favorite amongst the 3 I have on the table. I think the reason why is I feel like it's just really heavy, and this thing, they made this cable to like pivot, which I assume it makes it more comfortable for some people, but I just find the IEM to like move too much while it's on my ear, and it doesn't stay exactly the angle in my ear as well. So I actually prefer a cable that didn't turn, to be honest. But honestly, the kind of fit of this kind of slipped out of my ear a little bit from time to time. But overall, if you get a good kind of seal and kind of push it in there in good size, it'll fit. For me, I mean, I feel like the fit of the Simgot EA 500 LM. This is probably the most comfortable one. It feels really light and it's really small, and I don't know, I guess the shape of it is a lot more kind of closer to my ear type of shape, I guess. But yeah, I found this one to be more comfortable than. I also found the Kato to be also just a little bit more comfortable and fit in my ear a little bit better, but I really think the Simgot was my favorite in terms of fit and comfort. And yeah, but when it comes to kind of like the feature set, I mean, the Fiio just has way more than the competition. It's pretty crazy. Like, they give you way more tips. They also have the swappable tips, right? If you actually take off the tip, you can actually take off the nozzle, and this actually changes the sound too. So when you remove the nozzle, it has, you know, the inside, and then you can take the red nozzle and screw it in its place. And honestly, the black nozzle is the best one. The black one gives you the most treble, and you still get bass. The red one, it reduces the treble and you get more bass. So it depends if you want something more bassy and fun, or you want something more, I guess, balanced sounding, in my opinion, using the black tips and these tips right here. So I think that's the best combination. I went through literally so many different combinations to find the best one for you guys. So yeah, it took me quite a while, but I really think that is the best combination to do. And yeah, you guys can, you know, benefit from all of the work I did to figure that out for you guys. So compared to this competition, I mean, you get this nice case that is actually stackable, which is really cool. The cool thing about the Fiio stuff is they give you this case. You can actually just, if you have multiple of them, you can just stack them in a line and basically, yeah, have a stack of IEMs, which is really cool. The competition has, you know, kind of the normal leather ones or pleather ones, and they only come with, I guess, 3 tips, but basically one set of tips with 3 different sizes. For this one, the Simgot's also the same. They have the 1 tip and then 3 different sizes, so you get a lot more tips. None of them come with the balance cable, so in terms of accessory, you are getting a lot more. Now the Simgot's obviously a little cheaper. So the hot topic is, how does FD15 sound, right? So the FD15, the best way to describe it is it sounds very vocal forward. The treble is a little bit relaxed, and then it has a really, really good bass and sub bass. So it has a lot of bass that will punch, so you'll hear that. And overall, it's a very exciting, kind of warm, and very, I guess, vocal forward type of sound singer that's very kind of easy to listen to. I think that's the best way to describe it. So for me, down low at the sub bass, this thing just excels, honestly. It's just, like I said, the best part about this is the dynamic properties, right? The ability to like feel the music, and you really hear that down low because the sub bass goes down, there's a good quality to it, and it just hits hard. I compared it to, you know, the Simgot as well. The Simgot is the least, I guess you can call the least bassy or least dynamic, I guess, of the bunch. It sounds a little bit more, I guess, muted. You don't feel like you're in the zone as much, and you don't feel like you're actually there as much. Actually, the detail of the Simgot is surprisingly decent, honestly. Like, it's close to the Fiio. And then the Moondrop Kato over here, I feel like when it comes to kind of the detail, this one's in last place, surprisingly, and it's the most expensive. It has what they call a DLC or diamond-like carbon driver, but I guess it didn't really translate that well. But it probably does have the most, I guess, neutral tuning. I do like the tuning of this a lot. It's kind of like, it's not offensive, but you get pretty much good vocal quality. But the sub bass of this isn't very good, and the notes are a little bit more, I guess, woolly in comparison to the other two. They're just a lot tighter, more detailed on the Fiio FD15 and on the Simgot. So, but this one does have a good balance kind of tuning, so I think a lot of people will actually enjoy the tuning of this, right? It's kind of the very safe play is what I would say for the Kato. And when it comes to the Simgot, I would say the Simgot in comparison has a more, I guess, V-shaped type of sound is the best way to describe it. You get a lot more treble emphasis in comparison to the FD15, and even more than the Moondrop. And then you actually get a pretty nice bass on this, but, you know, like I said, you don't feel it as much. But you kind of lose the mid-range. You know, the vocals are kind of pushed back on this set. They're not as present as they are in the other two. So yeah, it's kind of your most popular type of V-shaped type of sound signature is what the Simgot goes for. So the FD15, right, moving from the bass, when it comes to kind of the mid-range, that's where it honestly truly shines. The mid-range is really, really good. Whether you're listening to male or female vocals on this, they're very full, they're very forward, you hear them really well. It's actually more forward than other sets. If you actually look at like the way it's actually measures, it actually is pushed a little forward. I actually do tend to like that response better. It sounds to me more like over-ear headphones, to be honest. I feel like the target that a lot of people use sounds a little bit more relaxed to me in IEMs than they should be, I guess, when I listen to it in speakers or headphones. So I actually do like the way they kind of present that mid-range on the FD15. It's a very good tuning. I would say the thing that you would listen to between these IEMs is it actually has a lot of resolution, and the treble is very fast, very quick, it's very resolving, so you can hear the treble really well, but it's not like as extended in like the higher treble regions. So a lot of like the air frequencies aren't as like present. And I feel like it could just use a touch more treble. It's a slightly relaxed, so it's never going to be fatiguing, but it's not going to be like bright either, or even I guess neutral. Though it's slightly relaxed up there. It's probably the one area where I could use a little bit more treble to sound just a little bit more natural for me personally. But honestly, overall, this is a very fun, easygoing set that a lot of people are going to enjoy. So then the next stage is, I guess, soundstage and imaging / gaming. That's what I like to talk about. Well, the FD15 being the biggest driver here has the biggest soundstage. It's not even close. This thing has big drivers and it definitely sounds, bigger. I would say, honestly, the Moondrop Kato is smaller, but it's still pretty nice and big soundstage. It's definitely the second best, with the Simgot being the smallest. This one just sounds like really small and very focused sounding, but it definitely is the cheapest and the smallest driver. So the soundstage is definitely not as big. But, I feel like the size reduction on the Simgot isn't actually a bad thing too. I feel like when I'm gaming with this, it's very light, it's very comfortable. This is the most comfortable one because it fits well and it's light. So if you want to use for a long period of time, it actually does really well, because when it comes to, I guess, imaging is, how well does it place targets? I feel like the Simgot does a really, really good job at that. I feel like it emphasizes the trebles in what people call the upper mid-range, around like the 2 to like the 4K regions a lot. And so I feel like in that respect, it actually helps a lot in gaming and just tracking footsteps and hearing the nuanced sounds. I feel like a lot of times I listen to a lot of audio products that emphasize that section do really, really well in kind of gaming, especially competitive gaming, honestly. So I feel like this thing being lightweight, comfortable, and emphasizing the frequencies makes it a really, really nice contender for competitive gaming. That's probably where I kind of like this the most in that category. Well, the FD15 also does pretty well, but I feel like it doesn't emphasize the treble as much. So a lot of those kind of higher frequency noises aren't going to be as, I guess, apparent. Now they're still there, you can still hear them all, but they're not as like pushed forward as they are on the Simgot. But honestly, when it comes to like imaging, detecting your enemies, I had no issues with the FD15. I feel like it was very, very easy to tell exactly where they were. I would say out of like 10, I would probably give like a 8.5. Well, maybe a 9 out of 10. It's like the target is like, if the target's like right in the center, they sound like they're like right here. They're never like exactly the center, but they're almost there, right? So it's a really, really good for imaging. Well, I feel like honestly, all of these on the table are pretty similar in terms of imaging. I just feel like the tuning itself kind of changes, but yeah, I mean, I honestly had no problem with any of these playing competitive games. They're all very similar in actually detecting where your enemies are. But I do think like the FD15 has a really good mid-range, and same with the Kato. So if you're listening to a lot of dialogue, a lot of story games, and you want to feel very immersed in your environments and being that, I think the FD15 is just a win on this whole table. It really does really well, I feel like, in single player games where you want to be very immersed in that environment. It's just like, it's pretty much unrivaled on the table because it does such a good job at, feeling kind of the music and kind of feel it come out more. You're a lot more engaged in it, and especially the fun kind of bass properties it has, as well as just pushing forward the dialogue and stuff. I feel like it does a really good job. And I mean, it kind of applies to music too, right? If you're a lot of vocal based stuff, it does really well too. So in conclusion, I think the FD15 really is the most technical one on the table. I think they really optimize the bass driver to just like really hit hard. They definitely have the big sound stage. They have the imaging. It has a really good detail. Like the details of this thing is the most detailed on the table too. It's the most technical. I think a lot of people are gonna like it because you get a lot of value. Like I said, like they give you so many accessories. It's technically really good. It's very good sounding. You have all the customization. You have, the balanced cable. You can, twist off the tips. You have different ear tips. So honestly, you just get a lot for your money, and you can also just kind of swap it if you want to change the sound up and change it up a little bit. Being the FD15, I think really does make it a top contender and a really good one that I'm very happy to recommend. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe down below, and it helps my videos out, and I'll see you guys in the next video.